So welcome to our attendees. As participants are joining, we are automatically muting you. So if you said hi and no one said anything back, that's why. If you are experiencing technical issues, please use the chat function. We'll be happy to assist you. If you're using a desktop computer, we have some little screenshots over here of how that works. We've got participants and chat right there at the bottom. If you have a question, you can feel free to submit it via the chat, or you can use the raise your hand feature to be called on, which if you're on a desktop will be underneath participants and then the raise hand option, or if you're using the mobile app, you click the three dots above more and click raise hand. We will be calling on participants following our brief presentation. So we'll see if we get all your questions answered during our presentation, and then we'll give you a chance to ask. And if you have any questions that are specific to your property, we'd probably ask you to save those and send them to us directly via our email or our outreach phone number, because though our engineers are very familiar with the project area, they don't have quite every address memorized as far as impact goes. But general project questions and answers will be a segment a little bit later on in the presentation. So now that that's said, welcome to the Blueprint Linden, Linview Park, and TSS Basin construction kickoff meeting. We're breaking ground very soon, so this is our last go to show you guys what we're doing before we do it. The agenda for today includes a very brief Blueprint 101, which is an overview of the entirety of the project. Then we'll introduce our project team and their roles and responsibilities for each. Then they'll walk you through some project designs and the timeline for each completion. Then there's a construction process and neighborhood impact section. Then we do that question and answer period we were discussing. And then we can do a few more virtual question submissions through the chat, or you can always email us at blueprint@columbus.gov. So to introduce the lady of the hour, this is Miss Tiffany Kahn. She is our outreach coordinator, and she's going to kick us off with that Blueprint 101 section.
Thanks, Anne. Again, I'm Tiffany Kahn. I work with the City of Columbus as part of the outreach team, and happy to see some of you tonight that we may have met last Wednesday and Friday when we were walking around the neighborhood. So thank you for being here and for joining us. And if you want to go to the next slide, we have a short video that sort of introduces everything. I don't know if you can restart it for me. It was a little fast.
It is a real quick start.
Yeah, thank you. So it's basically showing when rainwater gets into damaged pipes through cracks and leaky joints and runoffs from roofs. Most of this rainwater gets in our system in residential areas, and the sanitary sewers are not built to carry lots of rainwater. So sometimes during large rain events, the sanitary sewer overflows into rivers, or can back up into your basement, which unfortunately some of you may have experienced. Next slide.
Oh, it's thinking about it.
You might have to click twice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I did.
There you go. So that's our problem, right? This is what we're trying to fix. There is rainwater that is entering the sanitary sewer system, and it's overflowing and overwhelming the system itself. So the sewer system was not built to handle both rainwater and sewage, and it is causing overflows into our rivers and streams or basement backups through your floor drain. Also, this rainwater that's rushing down the street is picking up trash, pollutants, pieces of, when your car breaks, all kinds of things that are on the road, anything that's on the road, and is rushing down the street and going into our storm sewer and eventually gets carried out to our rivers and streams that way. So that's the problem. Next slide. How is it directly affecting you as a resident? So these sanitary sewer overflows are happening near you, near where your kids might go to school, where you may go to church, where you may, take walks. And we actually looked at this in the beginning of kind of designing the whole project, and focused on which areas we would go and do Blueprint and in what order we would do them based on the amount of impact that these sanitary sewer overflows were having on the neighborhood overall. So in Linden, and in all areas, but in Linden, we were looking at a high number and location of the sanitary sewer overflows, a high risk of exposure near schools, and the number and frequency of sewer backups in basements. So lots of water in basements, lots of backups, unfortunately. And then also the overall pipe conditions in the area were pretty poor. So we, Linden is actually the second neighborhood that we went into. It's very high on the list, and that is why. So it does definitely affect you directly. But if you go to the next slide, we'll talk about what we're doing to fix it. Blueprint approached this problem in an innovative way, right? We could build bigger pipes. We could just try to get the water all to the treatment plant and treat all of that sewage and the rainwater at the same time. But that obviously takes a lot of energy and it wastes a lot of energy to do that. And it's not actually fixing the root of the problem. So instead of building more infrastructure, we hope to invest in fixing our existing infrastructure and improving it, and creating opportunities to improve the actual quality of the water in our rivers and streams by improving these stormwater discharges. So we're going to route the water away from our houses to the streets and route the water through the green infrastructure, which acts as a filter, a natural filter, cleaning the water before it gets to the storm sewer and eventually to the rivers. So in this way, we're improving the rivers, the neighborhoods, and also the local economy, because most of our contractors are from this area, at least central Ohio. And then also the team that maintains the rain gardens is city employees. So they're also from the area. So we're improving the local economy by keeping jobs local as well. Next slide. There are 4 pillars of blueprint. So these are 4 pieces of our puzzle, basically. The 4 different ways that we're accomplishing our goal. Lateral lining is an important piece. So everyone has a sanitary lateral at their house, right? That's what carries waste away. That's what we saw in the video. But this is where most of the water is getting in. So there's cracks, there might be tree roots getting in and creating holes, or hairline cracks. And that's where the water is seeping into the sanitary sewer system. So we will investigate all the laterals. We'll send a camera up them and see their condition, try to clean them, and then if possible, line those laterals, sealing up the system and keeping that water out. Roof water redirection helps us move the water away from your house and around your foundation out to the street by looking at all the downspouts in the area, and where possible, routing those downspouts away from the house at least 7 feet to get the water to move away and out towards the street. And then sump pumps also help to get that water away from your house out to the street. Any resident, any home in the blueprint area that is a duplex or a single family home could be eligible for a sump pump through our program. So if you don't already have a sump pump and you're interested in one, please give us a call and we can get you an inspection to see if we're able to install one in your home. The last piece of the puzzle is where we're routing all that water to, and that's green infrastructure. So green infrastructure, as we said before, acts as a natural filter to clean out those pollutants and trash before it gets to the storm sewer. Next slide kind of gives you a visual of that. So we start with the water on the road. It may have leaves, may have dirt, goes through a rain garden. Here we have a bump out. That's an example. You can see the water going in there with the plants and all the mulch and soil, acts as a filter. And then that discharge out into the river is a lot cleaner than it would have been if it hadn't gone through there. Next slide. We can see the way that it filters through this kind of cross section of a rain garden, starting at the top with what you see. And those are plants, and they're special plants. We use native plants, and these plants are special because they can survive in very, very wet conditions and also very dry conditions. Mulch, and then underneath that is a layer of biossoil. So that is a mix of sand and soil, and it helps the water to drain quickly through. and then a couple layers of different sizes of stone. And also that acts as an additional filter. Inside there, you can see a sort of a pipe, and that is called our underdrain. It's a perforated pipe, and it connects directly to the storm sewer. And that's what makes Blueprint Rain Gardens unique compared to, you know, a rain garden you might build in your own yard or one that you might see in front of a business, because we connect our rain gardens directly to the storm sewer. Next slide. And that means that we will maintain them. So the city of Columbus is responsible for all maintenance on the rain garden, any rain garden that we build, forever. So it is part of the storm sewer system, and that means that we must use regular maintenance to keep it functioning. What that includes is about once a month, they'll come out, look for weeds, you know, pull the weeds, check the mulch to make sure there's enough. They'll remove some trash or anything in the basin that's preventing the flowers or the plants from thriving, checking the under drains and removing any sediment that's building up when necessary. So they have a checklist, and they complete that once a month. And it is not on the resident or any responsibility of the resident to maintain that rain garden. Next slide. All right, so then we're getting into the good part of this meeting. That was just a quick refresh, just tell you why we're out there and what our goal is. This is our team. So these are the folks that you will be seeing that have designed the program project, and also that you'll be seeing their faces out in the field. So we want to make sure we introduce everyone. Project manager Nick Dominic, and he works with the city of Columbus. He's an engineer. He's the lead on the project. We have CDM Smith as the design engineering firm. And tonight we have Erin Stockler here with us. She's the project manager for CDM Smith for this project. Construction management is Resource International. Jim Norden is the guy in charge there, and he is responsible for oversight of the project. He is not here with us tonight, but you may see him out in the field a few times. Answer Advisory offers the construction administration and inspection for the project. Kevin Lyons is with us tonight, and you will surely see his face and his team out there, as well as the construction firm itself. Facemeyer Excavating, and we have Ada Facemeyer, who is the owner of that, with us tonight, as well as Dan Stainer, and he is the foreman, and you will see him out as well. I don't know if we see I know we see Kevin's face. I'm not sure if we see the others, but you'll probably get to know them quite well. So welcome all of you as part of the construction team. I do want to mention that a partner in this, because we are discussing a unique opportunity to create a park at this location, not just a rain garden, but we're working with Recreation and Parks for the park aspect. And Kathy Spatz is with us tonight. She's a land development specialist with the Recreation and Parks Department, and we are happy to have her here, and she will be available to answer questions if you have them later on about the park. So thanks, Kathy, for being here tonight as well. Next slide. All right, I will turn it over to Nick Dominic, the project manager, to go over the TSS basins portion of the project.
Okay, thanks, Tiffany. You guys able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. As Tiffany said, I'm Nick with the city, project manager for both the TSS Basins and Linview Park projects. I'm also the manager for several of the projects that are currently going on in the neighborhood right now. You may have seen some of the rain gardens that have been constructed on some of the properties already, and some of the ones that have been constructed within the right-of-way. I'm going to let this slide linger up there for a little bit so that you can look and see some of the addresses, so that you can, because the map is a little small, you might not be able to get a good reference on there as far as location, but the addresses you might be able to see and say, hey, that's right next door to me, or that's right across the street. So while I let that linger up there, I'll give an explanation why we're calling it the TSS basins. TSS is actually an acronym for Total Suspended Solids, which is basically the gravel and dirt and any particulate matter within the roadway that is carried by a stormwater to these basins. We use total suspended solids as a proxy for total pollutants that are occurring from what we call non-point source runoff. Some of those pollutants would be, metals like lead. You could have, phosphates and other types of pollutants that are going to get filtered out in these rain gardens through the layers and actually sometimes consumed, by the plants too. That gives you an opportunity to see where we're talking about some of these basins going in. We're not going to go into the details on the specific locations. Instead, we're just going to talk in more general terms about the overall sequencing of how these are constructed and some of the impacts associated with them. Okay, next slide. So, as Tiffany indicated, the primary function is to provide stormwater treatment for the runoff that eventually reaches the streams and rivers. But we have the additional benefits of the water that we're shoving into these is, water that would otherwise be going to low spots within the roadway and causing flooding. So with the addition of these basins, we will be shaving off the peaks, as we refer to them, of the rain events and hopefully mitigate both the depth and limits of any flooding that is occurring within the right-of-way. We are planting trees in addition to the plants, and those trees are part of the list that is being used by our Rec Parks Department to increase the canopy across the city as part of the urban forestry master plan. So this is being done in conjunction with that and is being incorporated into that overall plan. And lastly, pollinator plants seem to be the in vogue item when it comes to landscape design. So we are making sure that we are including those. Next slide. The initial questions that we always receive from everyone is, well, how do you select these locations? Why is it going in right next door to me? And for some background on that, we have a couple tools in the toolbox as far as rain gardens and where we do them. So we can do them on private property, as is illustrated here, outside of the right-of-way and outside of the pavement. We call these, regional basins. These are our most efficient tool in the toolbox because we can get a lot of water into them. From a dollars per gallon of stormwater treated perspective, these are our most preferred ones. Going down the order of hierarchy, we would next do some of the rain gardens behind the curb line. We call them right-of-way rain gardens. And in the next one is the bump outs that they're called. They're the ones that you may see along Joyce Avenue, where they sort of jut out into the pavement. Those are less desirable because they can capture less water. They also take away parking, and they have some, traffic calming effects as well. And then lastly, permeable pavements are another tool in the toolbox, but they're really expensive. So they get used kind of infrequently. But within this area, can you go back to that real quick? Thanks. In this area, we are fortunate enough to have a couple of properties that were owned by our land bank redevelopment office that we were able to take ownership of and put some rain gardens on them. Sometimes these are not always located in ideal spots. If they're located at the top of the sewer shed, I can't make water run uphill. So sometimes they can be used, sometimes they can't, just based on where they are geographically. Other times we need to be able to get the water in, but we have to also get it out. So we need to be in relative proximity to where existing storm sewers are so that we can connect those under drains that Tiffany showed in that diagram earlier. And then ultimately, we want to make sure that we're being, good neighbors in the neighborhood. And so we don't want to, stick these in locations where don't make sense. So we want to make sure that we are truly providing an amenity to the neighborhood. Okay, next one. So some of the impacts associated with their construction, while they are really the most or the least invasive ones, we still have some of these impacts. Because we will be constructing storm sewers within the right-of-way and storing of equipment and material in the street, there will be temporary parking restrictions, and we underline temporary there to, emphasize the point that these are not permanent parking restrictions, whereas some of the other rain garden types that I described earlier, where they bump out into the street, they eliminate those parking spots on a permanent basis. There will be periodic water service interruptions for several locations where maybe we have to lower a water line or a water service that can be in conflict with the proposed storm sewer. So where sometimes we're installing the storm sewer, it has to trench through the street and sometimes the drive apron. So sometimes access to your driveway may be limited for a couple of days while we pour a new drive apron and it cures and is ready for, a wheel load on it. We're also going to be doing ADA ramps, obviously restoring the pavement for any trench cuts that we do in any of the areas disturbed adjacent to it. And then again, consistent with our urban forestry master plan, any trees that get removed will be replaced at the ratios that are indicated there. Next slide then. Okay, so a very, very bare bones description of the process of how we're going to go about this is before any of those impacts occur, we're going to make sure that we're staying in communication with you guys and notifying you of any water service interruptions, any parking restrictions, or any other inconvenience at each step of the way. Oh, sorry, hold on. A chat box thing popped up in the middle of the slide here that I'm using as my notes. There we go. Okay, so the water line relocations will occur first so that we can get those out of the way so that we can install our storm sewers, and the rain garden construction will follow shortly thereafter, and ultimately then planting of the basins and final restoration and pavement restoration. You can go ahead to the next slide there. Okay, and then just to give you an idea of the progression of the construction of these basins, it's in a simplified description, you dig a hole, put some pipe in it, and then you fill the hole and plant plants on top of it. It's about the simplest explanation of it, but as you can see there, yeah, on the left, we'll dig the hole, you backfill it with the granular material and the bioengineered soil that we call it. It has a high sand composition to make sure that the basins drain through it, and then we install the plant. Next slide, please. Then for an overall timeline, we just kicked off our initial pre-construction meeting with our contractor last week, and we are in receipt of a draft schedule, which indicates that for the TSS basins, at least, we will have some, tree removal and clearing performed in the coming days and weeks here, but real construction activities won't begin until May, when we start excavation of the basins and installation of storm sewers and lowering of water lines that I described earlier. And after we complete all of that work, we want to try and accomplish all of the paving all at once. So that will be deferred until the spring of 2023. Grass restoration for purposes of stabilization of the sites from erosion and sediment control purposes will occur, immediately after the basin construction is complete, but plantings will follow shortly after installation of the biosoils, and punch list will occur after a couple of establishment periods, as we call them, where we make sure that the plants are thriving, but then in 2023, we will be entirely complete. So that's a very, very bare bones brief overview of the project timeline and the nature of the work that's going to take place at each one of these locations. I believe the next slide is Tiffany's to let us know what else everyone should know.
Yeah. So if you saw that, one of these rain gardens is near you, or if you just want to be aware of what, what street is going to be worked on in next week or the coming weeks. You want to stay up to date on what's coming up. You should sign up for our construction updates. The website is there, but of course, if you want to go ahead and do it now, you can put your name and address and all your contact information in the chat, and we can go ahead and sign you up for those. You can get it through text or email, so you have two choices. And that way you'll get an email or text every Friday when we start construction, just letting you know what streets we'll be working on and what kind of work you should expect to see. During the construction process, any regular service that you receive should be uninterrupted. So you should get your trash and recycling picked up as usual. The mail will be delivered. And then of course, the emergency services will be able to enter streets. We wouldn't be blocking anybody from entering. The crew's normal work hours are from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then if you have a question, or say you're trying to get out of your driveway and big excavators parked in the way or something like that, feel free to ask them, hey, I need to leave. Can you please just move that equipment for me? Give them a chance to move it. If it's during those work hours. If it's after those hours and you have some kind of a water sewer emergency, the hotline is 614-645-7102. So you would call that number for emergencies after hours. Next slide. All right, so this is the section we'll turn over to talk about Linview Park. A little more exciting, I'm sure for many of you. And Erin Stockler from CDM, I'll turn it over to her to go through this section. And Erin?
Sounds great. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Good evening, everyone. As Tiffany mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, I'm Erin Stockler. So I was the project manager for both projects on the design side. So I will be giving you an overview of Linview Park. The map here on this slide shows the general overview of the park location. So there's Fern Place to the north, Fern Avenue to the west, Danoon Avenue to the south, and Burrell Avenue to the east. It's in that treed area that you can see on the aerial view. It's approximately 5 acres. It is currently a low-lying area that collects rainwater during heavy rain events. It is densely wooded as shown. And it is undeveloped, and through various site visits, we have noticed there's evidence of illegal dumping that takes place in this area. Next slide. Okay, so you have to turn your head for this view. So north is to the left. So Fern Place is on the left, Danoon Avenue is on the right. So everything's rotated 90 degrees here, but this just shows the existing conditions of the park area and sort of what the general concept for design was when we originally envisioned this park. So you can notice the blue lines in the middle, sort of the light blue lines there, is sort of the existing flow pattern. So when it rains in this area, flow would follow that pathway and land in some of those low-lying areas. There was no pipe outlet, so it just collected there. And there is an area of a wetland there now, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that we'll be restoring. And then the general concept was we needed an access point on both ends. So there's going to be an access point on Linview Avenue and an access point at the south end on Danoon. And we ensured that the design accommodated ADA compliance. So you'll notice that there's a 5% grade, just so that we can ensure that it's accessible for all residents. One thing to point out is that we did leave the existing forested edge to maintain some privacy of the adjacent residents. And the concept does include collecting the rainwater that is currently collected at Linview Avenue and Fern Place. There's some catch basins that are at that intersection currently. So those will be redirected to the park area, to the bioretention or rain garden for treatment in the rain garden. Next slide. So this is a rendering, sort of an overview. Again, it's rotated 90 degrees. So Fern Place is on the left, Danoon Avenue is on the south. This is a rendering of what it'll look like upon completion. There'll be a paved access drive from the north end all the way to the south end. And there is a paved walking path around the site. Rec and Parks will come through at a later date. And the goal is to install a shelter house or a pavilion on the north end, closer to Linview Park. There'll be a play area there in the circular portion, yep, right there. That'll have some playground features. And as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a bioretention basin or a rain garden. And then there's a wetland as well, which I will talk about just shortly. Next slide. So just to summarize, I guess, some of the stormwater features, and this is sort of the crux for the whole project. Obviously, we were looking for a place to provide a rain garden, and this parcel of undeveloped area provided a really good opportunity for stormwater feature. So we are building a new rain garden as part of this park, and you can see it the kidney bean, yep, the kidney bean shape right there. And then over to the left of that, or to the on the bottom, is a wetland. So there is currently a wetland there now. We went through the process of working with the Ohio EPA on permitting the wetland that we're going to be placing back. So it is basically a restored wetland. It's going to be in its existing spot, but it's just going to be restored a little bit. Currently, it's full of trash and some tires and some other debris that we'll be pulling out of there, restoring and putting back into service. And we do have permitting from Ohio EPA to do that. The blue lines here represent underground storm sewers that will be installed throughout the park to collect and convey flow to the bioretention basin, and then from the bioretention basin, or I'm sorry, rain garden, to the storm sewer that is located underground in Danoon Avenue. I want to point out too that on the bottom of this map, underneath where it says wetland, there's going to be a catch basin added right there. So currently there is a depression area in that location, and there's no outlet. So during heavy rains, water will pond up in that general area, and the residents in that immediate area have experienced basement flooding. Currently, the water that does collect there enters the sanitary sewer, which contributes to, could potentially contribute to sanitary basement flooding in other locations as well. So we are going to alleviate that problem by collecting the rainwater in a catch basin and conveying it to its proper location, which is the storm sewer network. Next slide. Now the fun part of the park is the park features. So again, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a shelter area, which is shown in purple. And then the purple circle there is going to be the playground or gathering area. It's going to be some sloping hills with some climbing features and a playground feature. And then the orange represents the paved walking path that will be installed around the site and to provide access from the north to the south. And the walking path is wide enough to accommodate emergency vehicles should that be necessary. Next slide. And then, as I mentioned before, and I don't know if Kathy, if you have anything to add to this, but a general overview of the park features will be the shelter house, the playground climber for older children, picnic tables and lighting. And this was all incorporated based on the public meeting, which we held in February of 2020. And with that, okay, yeah.
And just a brief overview. All of that is correct. And the good news is it's going to provide some amenities for people of all ages and really all abilities. We're trying to make sure and being very focused on the ability to make sure that everybody has a chance to enjoy not only the play experience in this park area, but also the natural features, because the neighborhood really has been looking forward to having some of these improvements.
Thanks, Kathy. A general timeline or what you can expect for construction of the rain garden and the wetlands. So first off, you'll be seeing some tree removal and clearing. Obviously, that's necessary for construction of the rain garden and to improve the wetland and add the walking path. Next, they will come through and excavate for the stormwater features such as the rain garden and the storm sewers themselves. Then they will install the under drains and the bioretention soil, as Nick mentioned during his portion of the presentation, in the rain garden. And then they will construct the walking path around the site, and then they will complete the restoration with planting and grass and any pavement that's disturbed as well. Next slide. So here's a general construction timeline that we anticipate for Linview Park. So you'll see construction beginning here shortly, if you haven't already, with tree clearing that'll happen here early 2022. In the spring, throughout the spring and summer of 2022, you'll see the excavation and the utility work being constructed, the park features being installed, and the planting and restoration, with the anticipation of the park opening to the public in late fall of 2022. So how will this impact my property? So the properties near the park entrances at Linview Avenue, Fern Place, will experience some construction traffic and also Danoon Avenue as well. And then the properties along Fern Place will experience construction in the undeveloped alley east of Fern Avenue for construction of the storm sewer, as I mentioned, in that low-lying area to collect the stormwater and redirect it from the sanitary sewer. And, oh yeah, here we go. This, and then how will it impact my neighborhood? So there will be some daytime local road closures. There'll be some material hauling along Linview Avenue. There will be a few utility relocations at Linview Avenue and Fern Place to relocate the gas line and the water line out of the way of the new storm sewers at that intersection. And a very temporary sidewalk closure along the north side of Danoon Avenue for connection of the walking path. And I'll turn it back to Tiffany. Thank you.
I was definitely talking in on mute. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Erin and Nick and Tiffany, for that beautiful overview. Now, this will be the promised question and answer period. So if you have a question, you can put in the chat. We'll read it out loud and see what we can do about an answer for you. If you want to use the raise your hand feature that is located in the participants dropdown, then we can unmute you and let you ask your question verbally. But I believe we already had one in chat. So Mara, will you share with us what we've got so far?
Might have been directly to you. I actually don't have a question.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So David asks, where is the SSO outfall discharge pipe located in Alum Creek? And then he amends to say CSO. I'm gonna say, we're gonna have to email you the back on that one, I'm pretty sure, David, because I do not know.
Sorry.
You're muted.
I'm sorry. I was talking and also was muted, just like Ann was.
There we go.
Erin, do you have an answer for David, or is this something we should follow up with him as far as the location of the outfall?
So the design sewer reliefs, is that what he's asking? So they're not located immediately adjacent to any of this work, but they are, there's a few located within the North Linden area that directly discharge to storm sewers, which are directed to the river. I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I'm sure we can provide a map indicating where the eventual outfall is. Those maps that I was showing you the other day, Tiffany, just show where the overflow from the sanitary to the storm sewer is. It didn't illustrate the eventual outfall at the creek. I can track down those maps and provide those.
Okay.
Great. So David, if you want to drop an email in the chat too, we can get that to you followed up after the meeting. Let's see. gonna say, I know I've got a few other residents out there. Anyone else with some questions? Oh, got a new message. Let's see, question about the gardens. Will the houses next to the gardens have new concrete aprons for driveways? Excellent question, Allison.
Nick, will you take that one?
Yeah, if we are disturbing the drive apron, yeah, we'll absolutely replace it. If it's getting torn up as part of the storm sewer installation, or just if we're tracking equipment over it, yeah, we'll wind up replacing it. But if it's untouched by our work, there's no plan to replace it.
Hopefully that clarifies that point for you, Allison. Thank you for your question.
I guess if there's a specific location, we can get back to if there's something more specific you want to know about it.
Aaron, Allison lives right next to one of the Hudson basins. I
Okay.
remember her from our previous meeting. I think we can maybe shoot her one of our plan sheets illustrating, what work is taking place immediately adjacent to her house.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, any other takers? Or let's see, did I have anyone calling in that I can unmute who has a question? I think my only call-in was our lovely Parks and Rec guest.
There's another question within the chat regarding
go.
the list of the tree inventory and everything that's getting removed from Linview Park and what we're putting back. We have a tree replacement schedule that can be provided.
Marvelous. Thank you again, David. And don't anyone worry, if you think of a question 30 seconds after this meeting ends, our outreach email and phone line are always here, and I'm usually the person on the other side going back to poor Nick answering all of my questions and turning it around back to you guys. So this is not your only time for questions.
Now, one of the chat questions that came directly to me was regarding, where did the tree replacement ratios that we showed on that one slide come from? And that was provided to us by our Rec and Parks department. I don't know if Kathy can elaborate on where that came from, but we are merely adhering to that. And then the size of the replacement trees that we're planting is going to be 2.5 to 3 inch calipers.
Marvelous. And
I can help you with that real briefly, Nick. The information came from the executive tree order that came from the mayor, and that is in support of retaining and increasing our urban canopy, which everyone is familiar with the Urban Forestry Master Plan and its goals to continue to increase our canopy. So we've identified that certain size of trees have a certain relative canopy. So those ratios were derived from that and arboriculture standards. So lots of big words, but basically just making sure that we don't have any long-term loss of canopy overhead. We're doing everything we can to make sure that we increase the amount of trees and improve the air quality and the water quality in Columbus.
excellent. Thank you. Let's see. TLC has asked, will the slides be available to share with others after the meeting? We'll do you one better. We're actually recording this entire presentation and we'll put it on the website, blueprintneighborhoods.com, so that anyone who didn't have it in their schedule to attend tonight can review it with the option of fast forwarding if the slides is what they are interested in. If you want just the slides themselves, go ahead and email us at the blueprint@columbus.gov and I can get them for you. Let's see, and David asks, does restored/improved wetland really mean this existing will be totally removed and rebuilt?
No, so the intent is to clean up the existing wetland. We're trying to minimally impact the existing wetland to the extent possible. Obviously, it's a collection of a lot of trash. There's been shopping carts and tires and stuff that we've noted in there. So it'll be cleaned up. And to the extent possible, it will remain untouched, although we do have to do some grading around the existing wetland to install the walking path. But I guess to answer your question, we're trying to minimize in the design does reflect this, that we minimize impact to the existing wetland to the extent possible.
Thank you, Erin. Regina H has asked, how will this affect our deer population in the area?
Hi, Regina. Let's see. Erin, do you have any comments on that part too? I'm assuming they will leave and then they will come back, is what I was.
Yeah, I don't have specific information. I know from some of the resident feedback that we've gotten previously that there are deer that either bed down here in this area or, traverse through that area. But I guess the expectation is that they will probably leave during construction, but the hope is that they'll return upon completion when the dust settles and everybody's out of there.
Yeah, I think that question was asked at our previous public meeting as well. And Kathy, I can't remember what you had said. Did you think that they would come back, or will they relocate somewhere else, basically?
Let me clarify. This is not what I think because I'm not a deer expert. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Caveat noted, yeah.
Just the things that we've noted and the people that we've talked to have mentioned that this is a great island for some of the wildlife that's in the area. And there are many species that kind of pass through this area in their territories. So there may be an area that they're a little uncomfortable with for a while, but it's probably still going to be within their migratory path. So likely they should be back. I mean, the general information we received was this is not going to be completely invasive. Most of the trees are going to be there. There's a minimal impact, as we mentioned, to the wetland areas where some of the water has been, and there's still going to be some opportunity for bedding down. So we're confident that it's not going to have a long-term, if not permanent, impact to that wildlife in the area.
Excellent.
Thanks, Kathy.
I would add too that we did do a bat survey as part of this as well, and we determined that it was not inhabited with the bats as well.
Excellent. Okay, I think David only has one new question. It was that if the added park road would be a thoroughfare. And that is a no. It's wide enough for emergency vehicles, but it is not meant to be driven on. The idea is that this is a neighborhood park for the people in the neighborhood. So we're hoping that it will largely appeal to people in walking distance.
Yeah, and then it is wide enough for a vehicle, an emergency vehicle, but we are installing bollards to prevent vehicular access, removable bollards.
Marvelous. Bollards, great. Okay, good. David knows what those look like. Did anyone else have anything in their direct chats? All right, well, I'd scrolled back up in the slides at request. So let me come back down here so you guys have the necessary information. So if you do want to be signed up for your weekly construction updates, you'll want to visit blueprintneighborhoods.com/contact us. And also, if you think of that other question in 30 seconds from now, you can always drop it in the line to blueprint@columbus.gov or give us a call at our outreach line down here, 614-645-1253. And then we also share information whenever possible at columbus.gov/blueprint. And we are on Facebook and Twitter as well. So visit us there as well. Anyone else with any final question? Going once? Going twice? Well, a particular thank you to Erin and Nick and Tiffany for presenting all this information here. And thank you to you, the residents, for turning out with your questions. It would have been a much calmer meeting without you. And by calm, I mean boring. So thank you. Everybody have a great night.
And thanks for coming, everyone. We appreciate it. And again, it was nice to meet a few of you out there the other day. So hopefully we will see you again. Have a good night. And will you save the chat before we close out the meeting? Keep forgetting to do that.
I would.
Yeah, hey Tiffany, this is Nick. Yeah, I want to make sure that we save that because I want to make sure I follow up on items that I promised to deliver their maps and plan views and everything. So
Sure.
Just gonna say.
Hey, Aaron, are you still on here? This is Kevin.
Yep.
Hey, real quick, just I was kind of working on stuff up to this meeting and I saw your email about the submittals. I think specifically like the site activity plan and maybe the schedule and how they weren't in CMIS yet.